Okay, take two. That was kind of my fault. I could have really just checked my stuff to make sure that wasn't going to happen, but whatever. So anyway, the point is, um, yeah, things are happening in quick succession, and the idea that nothing happened after the eclipse, because for people they give it like you know a couple of minutes, and then if nothing happens after that, then everyone was wrong. And God, if God worked that way, life would be very different. And the thing is, like, it's not a cop out to say that every non thing that happens is uh, is God's patience, because that's why it's like not an advantage to be right, because the more time that you have, the more that God is giving. This is time God is giving you. Like every day that passes and nothing happens is time that God is giving you, and um, the only way to know that for sure is for it to be up. Like you don't win by not believing that it exists. Like, and I know that people like to cite all of these past things that happen where they like to cite these ideas of religious blah blah blah, like getting out of hand, which um, I understand, but like if you just knew what reality was and you knew what the truth was, like you don't have to be swayed by every like remotely related possibility. And also, it necessitates that you ignore any sort of secular equivalent. Like, and also, like, I've never been a huge fan of like people deciding that in hindsight that um, the time to panic was like um, overblown and embarrassing, and we need to like eradicate what causes it. Like, um, there's no shame in having a readiness and having a sense of this or that. People like to blow up their relationships for no reason, just in case, that person is a red flag. People do that for the things that they want to preserve. Um, and typically they want to preserve their own lives. So if they need to leave a situation, a relationship, a job, a organization, um, everyone's got their advice in the chat of how to jump ship. So um, it really comes down to, it's not about religious panic or um, superstition or whatever. It's about where your values are and like what you care about. And so people being tricked into being like overly devoted to this world that's slowly morphing into Nightmare Planet, anyways. Uh, no one can live in America, like nobody can afford to do anything. Um, and aside from complaining, like nothing, they're not really getting anything done. Um, it's because, I mean, there's a lot of reasons for that, but um, so yeah, the stakes are still as high as they were after the eclipse, and I don't know. I just felt like I should make another video before stuff really starts hitting the fan, because it's looking like it's just going to keep ramping up from here. Uh, it has not gone down since uh, the last, 2023 September Revelation 12 sign in the sky was like the height of the watch period. And obviously, nothing happened, in the sense that, well, I won't say nothing happened. I'll say the thing that we were anticipating didn't happen. But by no means did the stakes go down. It just kind of raised and stayed raised. And, ever since then, I've just kind of been trying to focus on life just so that time will pass. It's not even like, oh, I'm gonna put that down. I got disappointed by it, and now I'm gonna go back to my life. And date setting is terrible, and nobody's really date setting. It's just but feast days. Once you get into the feast gauntlet that is the spring, you still have Passover coming up. You have Pentecost coming up, so. Um, There's really no time to relax. It literally could be any day. And so you see, and meanwhile, culture is doing everything it can to um, qualify as the end times, the end of the end times. So, that's going on in the background. Israel is this linchpin. And I was reading Isaiah yesterday. I was like listening to it. And, it's a big book. I got like almost halfway through it, just running errands and doing stuff at home. And, when you have your ear primed for the rapture stuff, and you're not even listening for it, I was like, dude, Isaiah, when God is prophesying about a specific time period and all these other time periods have passed, anytime God is talking about a time period, he's talking about Israel, and that, when Isaiah was writing, Israel wasn't long for the world as far as existing in his time. And none of that stuff happened in that time that he's talking about your time, because Israel exists again. It exists for enemies to come against it. And for this period, this day of the Lord, to be promptly ushered in after that or a little during it. You're just like, okay, I'm reading about now. And he's talking about, the dead in Christ rising. And I'm just like, what in the world? So the people that say like there's no rapture in the Bible, because they have dismissed it so long, I had to do a lot of research, and it really did seem like these things were opening up. This because we started seeking it, and because it is the time, it did seem like the scriptures were starting to reveal something that you didn't see before. All of these parallels, all of these stories you've read your entire life, and you didn't notice the Gentile bride, or the Gentile, friend, or the one person representing the one taken away and the other left, and all of this imagery that just start popping out, like, and you're just like, oh my gosh, Rachel and Leah, oh my gosh, Esther, oh my gosh, you know, Joseph. Like me and my mom were just talking about Joseph as a type of Christ, which, as I've heard before, not one of my favorite types in shadows, because I never really saw it like super clear, aside from him just like becoming the highest in the land, but just like him um, being sold by his brothers, and then uh, years later, those brothers come to him and they don't recognize him, and he is not. They don't consider him a brother. They consider him an Egyptian. They consider him part of secular society, part of pagan society, or not pagan, but just Gentile society. And he's one of them, like all of that. And I'm just like, dude, this is, it's too interesting. Like, it's just something I would want to do with my life, regardless of what time of what the times were. but like it's so obvious. And um, I don't know why my computer's acting like it's brand new. Hold on. Okay, sorry about that. So yeah, I was trying to look up this thing on my computer because my husband sent me this thing in the in he sent me this message, and I don't know if you've heard about Joseph and like how all the scholars like swear up and down like, oh, we can't find any evidence that he ever was there, and and so they swear up and down that they can't find Joseph, they can't find the Israelites, they can't find anybody. And yeah, my husband sent me this thing, and he was like, it was this researcher or somebody, and he was literally talking about there's a spot in Egypt, like you can see where they had there's a greenery up near all of the Nile River and all of those five rivers that flow out, and they learned irrigation techniques, and like they're known for that, and so um, there's this little place within the desert, like if you go a little bit further down, like towards inland, I guess, towards it's all desert up there, and but you see the greenery near the rivers, and then you see this little patch of greenery kind of in like further down, like southern Egypt, and that place is literally called Bar Yusuf, which means the waterway of Joseph. It's just annoying at this point. So, and his point was like, did someone figure out a way to make a trench? Because that was the idea. It was like, it's a little bit, I don't know anything about geography, like, but like, it was kind of like a lower valley. And so the idea is that someone figured out a way to dig a trench from northern Egypt down to this region and get this like slight vegetation area. But yeah, it's called. But the fact that it's called that in Egypt, there's something called the Waterway of Joseph. Like, how long has it been called that? I don't know. Like, I could research it, and they could be like, "Oh, it's only been called that since 1812, so it can't be about him." Blah blah blah. It was named, but like they always have something. It's always something, and yeah, and you could say that everyone, all Christians are delusional for trying to make connections, which, I mean, this is Old Testament, so you have to say Jewish people are delusional too, but also you have to admit that um, the incentive to corroborate anything from the Bible is low. And I was listening to someone else who was talking about um, how they read Revelation for the first time, and they were just blown away by the literary quality of it, which I like. That's my number one thing about the Bible is it's the way that it's written is just like amazing. So I was like really interested to hear someone else say that they noticed that. But even just like overall appreciating it as a work, even if you were going to appreciate it as a work of fiction, if you were going to appreciate the Bible as a work of fiction, you can't just say, "Oh, it's got some stories in it." Some stories in it that are nice. If it was a work of fiction, and if you were going to treat it as such, you would have to treat it as the greatest work of fiction ever made. You would have to. So, um, we can see the disconnect. We can see the disconnect. It's purely being suppressed as a Revelation. If Revelation, like he said something like, if Revelation was submitted as a short story, it would win all the awards. It would be, and it's true, it would be the earliest, um, what do you call it, fantasy genre, which I just saw a thing that said like that Lord of the Rings was like the first fantasy genre thing ever created, which blew my mind. I was like, really? Like he invented the genre. I mean, it doesn't surprise me, but it does in the sense of like, uh, wow, go him. That's a big stake, and I'm sure somebody could be like, he wasn't the first one, and then they'll talk about like, you know, something else, Chaucer or something, and be like, this was the first technically, and it'll be like, yeah, but that's not epic fantasy, like whatever. So so yeah, it's just like either way, you can't relegate just relegating the Bible to like either just like all the religions or as fiction, just like all the fictions. You're showing your tail. You're showing you don't want to, you're suppressing the truth and wickedness, or you're suppressing the awesomeness and wickedness because um, Revelation being an epic fantasy and being written 2,000 years ago, which we all know it was, even if it was 1,000 years ago, it would be ahead of its time. Even if you just shade off 1,000 years, even if you said the Catholics wrote it, they wrote one heck of an epic fantasy. You're not, so it's like, this isn't being, this is just being dismissed on whatever front that you're nobody is looking at this, and there's a reason for that. Like that is like the number one thing that is being overlooked here. You're suppressing the truth in wickedness. This is what the Bible says. And I think my next video is going to be the parables video because Jesus has you figured out already. He has you figured out already. Um, you're suppressing the truth. That's all it is. And that's why you don't want to hear about it. And part of it is people don't love God. They're not interested in God, and they're ashamed of that. And I don't think that is I'm pretty sure that is not a permanent thing. Most of the most um, conversion stories I've heard, most testimonies that I've heard, they start off talking about how God is the furthest thing from their minds, how they didn't believe in this or that. So your eyes are blinded. I don't know how much your heart um, participates in that. I tend to believe that if you're not interested, you're never going to be interested. Um, Mainly because I've seen it so much, and just understanding the ratio of the amount of people who are simply not going to accept God at like on his just learning about his attributes, just hearing about him, over the phone. They're just like, yeah, no, that's not interesting to me. If they saw him with their eyes, they'd be super interested probably. Um, so barring all of the misunderstandings, which again, a lot of those are intentional as well, because it helps you feel better about being disinterested in this God. Because why you're really disinterested in God is because he's got so many problematic things about him, and that's why. It's not because you suppress the truth and wickedness and you love your sin more than you love God, and you love this world and you love living for yourself more than living for God. And when people start talking about Jesus and God, it's such a buzzkill for you. You can't even believe it. You instantly want to die and run out the door. It's not any of those things. It's because he is just, that particular one is problematic. And but you consider yourself a religious person. It's gotten to the point now, like, we have our spiel. We've been taught our spiel and how to deliver the message, and they have been taught how to reject the message. And then sometimes you'll get someone who will try to like go beyond that and really like speak to someone, which I gotta say is necessary sometimes. Like, God bless that person. Me, I couldn't do it. Like, as soon as you tell me no, I'll be like, okay. But Yeah, so the only time that they want to engage you is when you're arguing about right and wrong, because they feel like they have a superior grasp on what right and wrong is. You are a religious uh, idiot who is dogmatic and doesn't know anything about the rest of the world, and so they are trying to educate you. And that's the only time that they want to have any type of conversation. Um, and honestly, that's going to have to be where the conversation takes place. It's the only thing that they're interested in is, touting what they know to be true over what you know to be true. So, but just trying to approach people with God. And, Jesus already had a parable about this. Uh, in fact, a lot of his parables deal with this. We deal with how people's hearts are just far from God. And we tend to think, well, it's because they've been hurt by the church, or it's because they don't know the information. We sound like battered women in a relationship. And we're just going to sound like that until God comes and gets us. And that's just what we got to do. Because we have to have energy. We got to do the job. We got to do the job, which is to uh, tell people about God. And it's actually, at the same time, there is this famine of knowledge about Jesus and who he actually is. And these pockets of people who just simply have not heard the information. Uh, in America, it's not even like, whatever, because the devil is working doubly hard, if not more exponentially harder. And Yeah, so it's a little bit daunting, but you just got to just be on the treadmill and just keep your head down and do your little 1 billionth part, or however many of us there are. So I think that the events in the coming weeks are going to speak for themselves. Who knows if people are going to try to like seek out answers after that, or if they're just going to try and uh, you know power through and treat it like any other thing. They've been through COVID, so now anything besides that is fine. It's just the ebb and flow of time, and after this will be something else, and after this will be something else. I think maybe the stars falling from the sky might wake a few people up. I don't know. I don't know, how far it's going to unfold. Um, and, I think the devil has been planning his resurgence for a while, clearly priming the world for it. Um, I think that's one of the many uh, tools of the media in the last 100 years is having an apparatus to prep the people for the things that he has planned. So, yeah, I don't know. That I just felt like saying that and talking about that. And yeah, now it's been an hour and I'm still not tired. So I guess I'm up. Here's me running on 5 hours today, and go Jesus, go, I guess. All right, y'all be blessed.